With the likes of Dragon's Dogma 2 and Elden Ring taking over the gaming world, two examples of games that don't exactly hold your hand, it got us over here at GGRecon asking the question, why do we enjoy such difficult games? Is this a recent thing? Or have gamers been seeking this virtual form of punishment for years? Well, after deep diving through the internet for a few hours, I came across a Reddit post that sparked my interest from a few years ago, simply asking the question, are games getting more difficult? The user's experience resonated with me. They admitted to not exactly being a gaming prodigy, but that they used to hold their own on higher difficulty settings. However, recent game releases have pushed them to lower the difficulty just to avoid the frustration of constant rage quitting. One commenter responded that actually, games have become significantly easier, with devs introducing more hand-holding processes to keep players engaged. But then they also went on to say that Souls-like games are next to impossible to play these days without a guide. And I kind of agree. I think overall games are easier, but it's more so that a particular niche of Souls-like games have become extremely popular, causing players who don't normally seek out these torturous experiences to dive in to see what all the hype is about. And if I'm being honest, I was definitely guilty of this too, as I was probably one of the only people in the GGRecon office who hadn't played any of the Souls-like games and decided to dive in headfirst with Elden Ring. And I quickly got a reality check, as I spent close to an hour fighting a goddamn tree that I had no business even looking at that early on in the game, only to finally give up and do a quick Google search to find out that you're not even meant to fight the enemy right now. Due to my lack of experience with these types of games, if I see something that looks scary, I assumed it automatically meant I'd have to take the beast down. And in doing my deep dive, I saw a bit of reassurance from another commenter to show I wasn't on my own, as they went on to say that I love the Souls games and Souls likes, but I'll be if I'm not playing them with a guide. I'm not getting 70% through the game to realize I upgraded the wrong stats and missed a bunch of that could have made my life easier. While I agree to some extent, I do reflect back on the good old days when there wasn't a guide for every single game to provide the most meta build possible. A game that personally immediately springs to my mind is Final Fantasy X. Without a guide, this game was close to impossible to 100%, but that was kind of the beauty of it. I remember the hundreds of hours I put into this game, experimenting with different builds for each character, constantly failing but learning all at the same time. Could my time have been much better spent had I found a YouTube video suggesting the best sphere grid route for each character? Absolutely. But the sense of achievement I got when I finally beat the Mega Sisters after failing so many times is still unmatched to this day. But to counter my own argument, it wasn't until I managed to borrow a paperback copy of the official Final Fantasy X guide that I discovered the actual final hidden boss in the game that I would never have discovered on my own. I'm looking at you, Penance. And this got me thinking, are games genuinely harder these days? Or is it just a case of a niche of games becoming extremely popular? Well, in order to answer these questions, we need to go back in time. For the boomer gamers such as myself, no doubt you remember the golden age of arcade gaming. Head into an arcade with your pocket money to try out various games only to be absolutely destroyed and humiliated all in front of your friends. A game that immediately springs to my mind is Mortal Kombat, a game that offered an extremely difficult experience with absolutely no room for error. And after spending hours on the sticks at the arcades, you'd often be left wondering if the games were purposely set up for you to fail. And if you did feel that way, you may have actually been onto something. Arcade games were often set to the hardest difficulty purely to maximize the arcade's profits. The games had to be hard enough that players would constantly lose and have to keep pumping money into the machines to continue playing. There were no accessibility options, difficulty choices, or even checkpoints. It was quite literally all or nothing. But as games evolved from the confines of arcades to at-home consoles, the priorities of the game developers and console creators shifted. No longer was it about keeping your playtime as short as possible to allow you to pay more money to continue. Now it was all about maximizing player retention. This saw the introduction of difficulty settings, allowing players to choose between the standard easy, medium, or hard difficulties. It also added things such as checkpoints to save their progress, assisted aiming options, and a shift towards storytelling to keep the players engaged, rather than introducing the most difficult challenges to try and trip up the player base. This proved to be a huge commercial success for both the game developers and console creators. For years, the gaming scene was dominated by story-driven games that were less focused on the challenging aspect of games, but that is until the introduction of online multiplayer that caused a complete change in gaming forever. I still remember my first ever introduction to PvP gaming when I went to a friend's house to play Halo 2 on the Xbox, and I was completely mind blown. I remember asking, wait, I'm playing against real people right now? I'm on a 5 kill streak against IRL players using the energy sword? Online multiplayer introduced a whole new level of difficulty. No longer did you have the option to lower the difficulty and adjust the settings to succeed. You had to rely on skill alone to achieve success. This led to games such as Call of Duty exploding in popularity, providing a battleground for players to truly test their skills in first-person shooters. Then, social media was introduced to the internet, which had a huge knock-on effect for the gaming world. Not only could you now show off your gaming skills to your friends, but you also had the chance to go viral online for your gaming highlights, even offering a whole new career option for the most charismatic or skilled gamers. In my personal opinion, this led to a need for players to prove that they were, in fact, an elite gamer, leading many to seeking out the most impossible challenges in gaming to prove they were the cream of the crop. Enter the Souls games, a series of next to impossible games developed by From Software. I mean, the company is so confident in its challenging game designs that it doesn't even offer an easy mode within its games. The Souls games are a breath of fresh air, with so many developers focusing on making games as easy as possible to maintain player attention. From Software completely flipped the script and decided to make the game frustratingly challenging, with not a single ounce of yellow paint in sight to lead you down the right path. The games took social media by storm, with players posting their impressive speedruns and some even finding the game too easy, to the point that they used Guitar Hero controllers to complete it. But in a world full of PvP games, what made these impossibly difficult games stand out? Why was the golden age of arcade level difficulty suddenly making a comeback? Well, it's a bit more complex than you think. While Souls games are made to be extremely tough, they're not quite on the same level as classic arcade games. That sounds strange, but hear me out. Arcade games were designed to be so difficult that they made you fail, whereas From Software has managed to find a perfect balance with their games by building a level of trust with their player base. Yes, you are going to die a lot in any Souls game, but the battles are specifically designed so that each combat is a puzzle, so each death is not a complete loss. The battles are all about learning enemy movements and adapting, with the hope that with each attempt, your reflexes and observation skills improve to allow you to overcome the enemy. They're not just difficult for the sake of it, or for some monetary gain like in the olden days. There's genuinely a reason for each attempt for you to learn and adapt. Gamers like challenges. In fact, failure is often central to player enjoyment of games. But there is a caveat. There must be a payoff and a finish line in sight. So to reflect, I'd actually argue that games are easier in the current day than they were in the past, as previously, games were designed purposely for you to fail, while the present times offer a much more balanced experience. And that's not even taking into account all of the great accessibility options on offer to allow anyone to have the chance to experience the joys of gaming. Do you agree with my take? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you've been watching this video, YouTube's algorithm has carefully selected one of our videos just for you, so why not go give it a watch?